Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and I finally got my chance to play Donkey Kong Bananza early, and I have a lot to say on this game. I want to get into my honest thoughts on what I've experienced so far. I have some different theories to go over. I want to talk about the gameplay mechanics, I want to talk about some of my criticisms, and my overall praise as well. So there's a lot to get into from what I've experienced from the beginning of Donkey Kong Bananza. But before going forward, let me point out I have this goal to reach 60,000 subscribers, so if you find yourself enjoying my content, your subscription would be appreciated. So for the last week or so, we've been hearing that there are demos of Donkey Kong Bananza out in the wild. Maybe at Target, Best Buy, Walmart, GameStop, and I've been checking all the different stores in my area for the last week or so to no avail until just recently. So I got to play the demo for Donkey Kong Bananza, and I recorded my first stint with this demo, but then a day later I went back and played it again, just to see a little bit more, see if I can uncover any sort of secrets, because I definitely went in hoping I could find some sort of crazy secret about this game. But unfortunately, I have yet to find King K. Rool in Bananza. Of course, it is a demo based off the very beginning of the game, basically, and it's actually a highly tailored demo. So I went into the demo thinking I would go and find the Kremling fossil that we know is in Ingot Isle. However, the demo actually cuts you off before you get to that point, because early on into the demo, you get to this point where you see these golden bananas that you can break, and whenever you break one, it initiates this big sequence where everything gets sucked up into this giant fireball thing that ultimately pushes Ingot Isle underground. And we know there's more that happens afterwards in Ingot Isle, but they cut the demo off at this point and they let you explore a little bit of the lagoon layer, the next major level of the game. So I was unable to get a closer look of the Kremling fossil because it's later on into Ingot Isle, but I did test out something that I was wanting to try out, and that's that you can try and break the other bananas that are in the area before you start that whole cutscene. However, regardless of which banana you break, it starts the sequence in the same section, so you can't get any extra special bananas in that way. But there is something I noticed about the very beginning of this demo that I personally had not seen before. There's just a little bit more footage, a little bit more of the opening sequence that I hadn't seen before, and it definitely had me very curious. Because it opens up with a shot at the moon, which I find very interesting considering this game's connections to Mario Odyssey, and the moon's a very big part of Mario Odyssey. Whether that means anything at all, that's hard to say, it could just be a coincidence. But what I find perhaps even more interesting is how they open things up by saying that this is taking place far off the shores of DK Island. So they are referencing DK Island here, and we know that Cranky Kong also talks about DK Island, and he eventually makes his way down to the layers alongside Donkey Kong throughout his adventure. We've seen that already. But something that perhaps some of you have not noticed, and this that I did not see during the demo, but I did see during the Bananza Direct, is that we do get a good look at the world map, and on the surface of the world map, we can actually see DK Isle off into the distance. And so it has me wondering a couple things. What we see in the demo here, is it truly the exact very beginning of the game? Or is there one more opening cutscene before this moment, because they do make reference of this setting being far off the shores of DK Isle? Could there have been an opening scene taking place on DK Isle? Because we do know that Cranky Kong talks about how there is a banana bandit that steals the bananas at DK Isle while Donkey Kong is away, coming to Ingot Isle to find all these new special bananas, which we theorize may have something to do with King K. Rool. At this point, it's hard to say for sure if this is just the second scene of the game or if this is just a neat little reference to DK Island. And just going back briefly to how this demo is structured here, when they cut you off and move you onto the lagoon layer, they are cutting out an entire section of the game that we've seen from the treehouse where you explore more of Ingot Isle and you get to Baboon Town. The treehouse ends when you get to Baboon Town, but there's more going on there that we still have not seen. We do not know what transpires by the time we get to Baboon Town inside Ingot Isle and how DK ends up in the lagoon layer. Given that we're actually going to be exploring a town here in Ingot Isle towards the end, I'm led to believe that there's going to be some more story sequences here, so considering the opening scenes of the game, considering what happens with Voidco when they suck Ingot Isle or push Ingot Isle down below the surface, and what's going to transpire in Baboon Town, there's definitely a lot of room for some interesting story stuff here, and maybe, as I was just talking about, there is something that happens before we even get to Ingot Isle in terms of the opening cutscene of the game. maybe taking place on DK Isle here. There's a lot that could be going on that they are hiding, and the demo really only shows us just a little bit, a little slice, so we don't get too spoiled on the various secrets this game has in store. But something else I noticed from this Ingot Isle section is during this big cutscene when Donkey Kong is being sucked up, we do see Void Co. And I've seen people talk about this before, how we hear the laugh of Void Kong, and some people have made the suggestion that there's some sort of a deeper laugh that might be from another character. And actually being able to play the demo, being able to hear the audio unadulterated by background music or what have you, I did notice the laughing, and I'll play it here. And so what I find interesting about this is that, one, we can't discern Poppy Kong laughing, and so that then has me wondering, is this just Void Kong and Grumpy Kong that are laughing here? But then maybe this deeper laugh that we're hearing isn't from Grumpy Kong, because we don't even see any sort of expression suggesting that he is laughing during this scene. So it might be the case, as some have suggested, that perhaps this deeper laugh we're hearing in the background here might be related to King K. Rool, could be a subtle reference that he is the true big bad behind the scenes. And I've talked about this element before, but I want to point it out because I don't think too many people have noticed this. We do see a lot of the Crocoids in the background alongside Void Co, and we do see some of the pulsating golden eyes, the very big ones that kind of remind us of King K. Rool's big giant eye as well. So maybe there is something here. When we account for the laugh, we account for these eyes, maybe there's a subtle reference to King K. Rool being behind the scenes here, and maybe with the context of the opening scene, the true opening scene that we're theorizing might take place in DK Island, what's going on here might be a bit more clear. Possibly it is just all a theory from what I've experienced so far and seen of the game. Now, as for the lagoon layer from a theory perspective, I didn't notice anything too crazy, at least from a theory perspective here. I wanted to find something, but I haven't found anything yet. Maybe I'll go back to the demo another time, where by that point we'll probably have learned more about the game and the game will be about to come out. But I do have a lot to say in terms of the gameplay mechanics. So the way the game functions, with your left control stick you move around, with the right control stick you control the camera, that's expected. With the face buttons, I really like how it's all put together. So the A button, the button to the right, is how you jump, and then the X, Y, and B buttons are for punching in different directions. X for punching vertically, Y for punching forwards, and B for punching downwards, and this allows you to break downwards, break upwards, or break to the side. And then with ZL you can do your roll, with ZR you can pull or grab terrain, with the left bumper shoulder button you sing, and with the right bumper shoulder button you do your little slap to the ground, and if you press L and R at the same time you start to beat down on your chest, and when you're with Pauline, she will begin to sing to power you up into one of your Bananza forms, and you do get to play as the Kong Bananza in the lagoon layer of this demo. And I gotta say, I definitely feel the extra bit of power that you have in your Bananza form. I really was pummeling through with great speed and strength in this Bananza form. It felt very cool. Love the music, by the way. It's so engaging and inspiring. I have so much to say when it comes to the music of this game. I think it might be just a true masterpiece from a musical perspective, at least from what we've heard so far. But I really do like the controls. It is different from any other game I've played before, but ultimately I will say it is intuitive. It does feel natural. Of course, there's so much that you can do that it does take some time to figure it out and get a good hold on it. But by my second time playing the demo, mind you, the demo is only 15 minutes long, it all felt second-natured already. And given my experience with Mario Odyssey and how many different cool platforming tricks you can string together with the mechanics of that game, I was definitely already messing around a little bit in Bananza as well to see if some of that carried over. And so I was already trying to combo into my rolls and jumps, and what I find interesting about Bananza is that, like in prior Donkey Kong games, the country games, you would be able to do a roll off a cliff of any kind, even from the beginning ones, and you could jump midair. You can still do this in Bananza, but it's more interesting because it's in a 3D space now, and it works both ways. You can roll then jump, or jump then roll. And I'm super curious how we're going to be able to expand our moveset here, because we do know about the other Bananza forms, how we can fly and run quicker. Perhaps there are more. We've theorized that based off what we can see from the skill tree. But already from the skill tree, you can expand your abilities to do different things, such as this little spin jump. So if you spin around your control stick, Donkey Kong will spin into a ball in place, and if you jump, you can jump upwards with doing a little bit of a spin attack. Now, you do not have access to this move from the beginning. However, in the demo, once you unlock the skill tree, you can unlock it immediately. And so there will be extra platforming abilities that Donkey Kong could add to his repertoire through the skill tree. It's not just passive effects like more life or longer Bananza charges and things of that nature. And so from everything we had seen so far, I was already going into Bananza thinking that there's going to be a great deal of depth to the platforming mechanics, but after coming away from the demo, I now feel sure that that is absolutely the case. And a couple other things I'll mention here. I love how you can climb around. It does remind you a little bit of Breath of the Wild, but there's a lot more speed to it here. Donkey Kong climbs these surfaces with speed. He rolls around and runs with speed. You can repeatedly press the ZL button to continue rolling around, so you have a lot of speed here. And obviously Donkey Kong's very strong. He can destroy a whole bunch of different things, nearly everything, as we have observed throughout all the trailers and gameplay. But what I will acknowledge here is that there is a decent amount of things that Donkey Kong can't break. Now, there is a lot, but there are things that he can't, and I think this is important because it does offer a little bit of limitation and structure to the levels, which I think is important to have some direction and objectives here that you can't just cheese through. You look at games like Tears of the Kingdom where they give you so much freedom to do so many different things. While that is awesome, you can argue or critique that perhaps they gave you too much freedom in Tears of the Kingdom because you were able to find ways to do certain challenges in a very easy way that would take away from the meaning of that challenge. I don't think that's really too much of the case in Bananza. Now, there are certain times where that's the case, like I did run into some different parts in my second stint, which I didn't record any footage of, I apologize, where clearly there was one designed way they wanted me to get to a particular little bit of treasure, and I found an alternative way simply by breaking through the side. So there is a little bit of that. And I think it's fine to have a little bit of that where you feel like you can cheat some of the puzzles and challenges because that does provide a certain sense of exhilaration and satisfaction. But on the flip side, you don't want too much of it because then you find yourself cheesing through or cheating a lot of challenges, beating them in a way that's not designed to, and then all of a sudden the game feels much easier than it should be. So at least from what I've experienced so far, which admittedly is a brief amount, I do have the sense that they have a proper balance here. But there are some criticisms that people have made of Bananza that I have also observed in the demo. They are there. People have complained about the frame rate. Now, I haven't seen too much frame rate issues with the normal gameplay, but what a lot of people have mentioned is that there are frame rate issues in the map, and I went into the map and I did notice some frame drops. Now, it was just a map and I didn't really take too much issue with it. Maybe I'm just easier to please in this way, so I don't think it's that big of a deal. And at the end of the day, this is a demo. It's not a final build of the game. The final build, it may run more smoothly. So I'm not too concerned about it, but let's assume that the final build of the game runs exactly the same as this demo. I don't think it's going to be that big of a problem, not for most people at least. So ultimately, I think it's a very minor issue. Because I don't really expect too many people are going to be dealing with the maps too often. They are interesting to look at, you may look a little bit, but like I said, I don't think it's going to be so jarring that it's going to take away from your experience in a sort of drastic way. Now, another issue that people have talked about is the camera. And I do have to say, this is an issue that people are going to run into. And considering what they're doing with Bananza, I can see why there are camera issues, because you are throwing yourself into all sorts of types of terrain, doing things in various possible ways, and so it does create a lot of challenges for the camera to follow Donkey Kong around, and I would say for the most part it does work really well. However, when you do get deep underground, that's some sort of terrain very deep in there, there will be some times where the camera's so close to Donkey Kong, you can't see Donkey Kong, you can't see his silhouette so you know where you are within the environment as well, and there can be some confusion. Now, if you just move around a little bit, you will find yourself. I also personally don't think this will be too much of an issue because I don't think it's so common of a thing that you're going to be doing. It kind of depends on how you play the game, and if you play the game in this way, it's easily fixed by just moving around a little bit, which you're already doing when you're just rummaging around underground this way, destroying everything in your path. But it is something people are going to experience, and depending on your own personal taste, you may find it a bit more frustrating than others. So it's absolutely worth noting, it is a valid criticism. Do I think any of these issues should take away from the overall review score of this game when people actually start reviewing it? Not really. I think these issues are going to be fairly minimal for most people. Of course, that is just my own opinion on the matter. But you know, ultimately I come away from playing the Donkey Kong Bananza demo thinking that this game is highly polished. It's beautiful, by the way. I had some concerns because I had seen some of the rocks looked a little bit low res, but in motion, everything flowed so well, it played so great. There are these moments where I'm just destroying so much debris and I'm destroying all these different bits of gold, and it's beautiful to see it all just coming apart in your face, flying around. It's a really cool experience, and the expressions and animations of Donkey Kong, at least to me, leave a mark, a positive mark. I play this game with a smile on my face. There's so much love and magic poured into this game, it feels like. I am excited for this adventure. I feel like we're in for something really special here, and I think most people are going to agree. But what do you think of Donkey Kong Bananza? Have you got any chance to play the demo? Let me know in the comments below. This is AndresRestart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.